Welcome to the Femsplainers. I'm Christina Hoff-Summers.
And I'm Danielle Crittenden. And we have just such a huge guest today. We're gonna speed date through the top of the show.
This is just we're meeting history here.
We're meeting history. Candace Bushnell, creator of Sex and the City.
She wrote all the columns that led to the HBO series.
Right. She's coming into our studio. I've got a 1934 Cosmo recipe prepared for her. I mean, that's what they drank on the show. I don't know that it's really her drink, but I thought, how can you have her and not have a Cosmo? Yeah. So we've got her coming in. But quickly, before we go to her, we did a road trip this past weekend to Hollywood.
Yeah,
to LA.
a Femsplainer chick road trip.
And you were on Bill Maher, and you were at the top of the show, and you rocked it.
I guess.
You did.
That's what people are telling me. Except somebody.
Stunning. They really tart you up there.
They tarted me up. They had this amazing makeup artist, and she said to me, "Don't worry, we make everybody look like a star." And I said, "Okay." And they did. I mean, it's absolutely uncanny because as a woman of a certain age, I don't exactly look like I look on the show, but everybody saw it, so maybe that's how I look.
It's sort of amazing that when you get a good makeup artist, you realize, I don't need plastic surgery. I just need a good makeup artist.
And you need them to be shooting at the right angle.
Right.
And she told me they're going to shoot you from this angle, and that's good for you. And their lighting, because you can, I don't ask people to do this, but I was wearing the same outfit, and I had makeup, and I had my hair done, and I was on the Ben Shapiro show. Same thing, and then on Bill Maher, and it's not the same person.
Yeah, well,
he has weird lighting, Ben.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, he's in Sherman Oaks.
But Bill also gave you a really good time.
Yeah.
Like, that's always scary. That was really terrifying. I was in the green room with you, and I was sort of judiciously pouring you bits of wine so you would have just enough buzz to feel relaxed.
I know, she did.
not so much that
no, I didn't have too much
crazy.
Yeah. And then the one of the producers said, just go out there and pretend you're alone, in a cafe, just talking to each other, pretend the audience isn't there. And then I told that to my friend on the phone and said, don't do that. You'll say inappropriate things. And then
Christina, left to her own devices, will say crazy stuff.
I could have said crazy shit.
Yeah.
So I was afraid. But no, I just went out there, and after like a millisecond, I just talked to him, and he was great. I love him, and we go way back because I used to go on that show.
Politically Incorrect,
yes.
It began its life as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I've had very appreciative audience. I mean, people sending in things. Most people liked it, except for a few. But it's had like over, I don't know, more than 300,000 views in a few days.
Yeah,
that's good.
No, that's and they plugged from my perspective.
The Femsplainers.
They plugged the Femsplainers, so that was really all. I cared about you, obviously. That was kind of all I cared about. So we have a couple of stories. Actually, we have so many stories, but we're not going to get to them this week. We're going to have to save them. But there is one that is really so big that,
the Chevy Chase dog park drama.
I think we have to get to that this week because it's so huge.
So if you've missed it, just Google Chevy Chase dog park. So Chevy Chase is a sort of leafy suburb of Washington,
where you live.
DC. I live there with Izzy. We go to this dog park. We have personal feelings about this park. It's beautiful. It's the most charming little vignette. And you can go there and take your dog, and they play happily. They're quiet. And then the miracle is in this neighborhood where people can be kind of cold and distant. Everybody's become best friends. And you go there and you talk and you meet your neighbors.
Right. You could take a little glass of wine along with you.
Yes, you could. You could have like a...
In your brewmate. Right. Our sponsor, take your brewmate.
But some neighbors didn't like the fact that outsiders were coming in.
What do you mean outsiders?
I know people that aren't from the neighborhood. You've got the
people
worst...
would travel to come to this.
Yeah, they
dog
would
park.
because it's so wonderful. It's little, but it's charming, and there are nice dogs there. Well,
maybe they were trying to network at the dog park or something.
Well, there's some of that. But no, it's a lovely dog park. but you have the worst case NIMBY, not in my backyard, concernocrats in Chevy Chase. And people thought, well, I don't know if this is good for the, there might be someone parking when our gardeners come, and there's dog barking when I'm trying to play the violin for Horatio in the evening. And they protested and brought in lawyers. These high-powered...
That's so Washington. That is,
and we've got,
so
but
Washington.
Okay, so we're going to organize. We've got Supreme Court justices in the town.
Is one of them named Brett Kavanaugh?
And there's a Roberts that's like, I walk by the house every day.
Oh, we're quite sure that Brett Kavanaugh was never in an inappropriate situation with a dog.
Well, he may have a dog who creates problems, because there are dog parks are rape cultures.
Dog that dumps other dogs. But Ella, I mean, it's not just so local, because this dog park, and I think they did close it down, right? Or they haven't yet.
They voted last night, and it's going to be shut down.
Right, and this made the Washington Post. Ella,
what do you think?
What did they say? They had some ridiculous... I mean, this is literally in the Washington Post about this dog park that's being shut down.
It is. I mean, it seems wild. There was apparently a resident wearing a Make Woof Not War t-shirt.
Yes.
Arguing that the dogs are the voices of living beings.
Dogs' lives matter. Yeah.
There was a press release by another resident who said, "My friends and I will leave no stone, tennis ball, unturned in their opposition to the park." But it was, the park gates will be taken off their hinges. I think it happened this morning.
An act of violence. No, because, look, and I stipulate that a lot of people aren't going to sympathize with this first world problem.
That's all we have, Christina. I keep trying to tell you.
No, but what is more innocent?
Do you want a third world problem? I don't think so.
No, I have a dog park problem in Chevy Chase. It's a charming place, and it's like, give me a break. It's where I meet my neighbors, and where Izzy can run around with inappropriate Kavanaugh dogs.
Well, no, it's also, I'm a dog owner, and there are people, even those who are dog owners, who are so neurotic. Like, you know what I hate? I'm going through our ravine. We live across from a
people making
ravine.
trouble about your ravine?
No. That's an unofficial dog park. But yeah, there's always people. They send police down.
They do?
Yeah, they do. The police sort of come down. They're kind of embarrassed. There's so many better other things to be policing in Washington, D.C. But they sort of come in and go, "Oh, lady, can you put your dog on the leash?" You go, "Yeah, sure, fine."
But you know what I would say to him?
What?
Not on your life.
No, you don't want that fine. You just go, sure, officer.
I'll put him.
And you put him on for 5 minutes. But no, I have Labradors. You can't walk through a ravine with dogs on leash, and as long as they're well behaved, and you'll get people coming up going, and they're Washington, so they're all uptight, like, your dog needs to be on a leash, and the dog is bothering no one. I got into like I now, my new Zen self, I didn't get into a shouting match, but it's like these ravine walks full of lawyers, and you're walking along, and somebody has a dog that they can't control, like some savage dog on a leash, and they start yelling at you. And one guy started to say, "I am calling the Park Service right now."
Okay, you know what?
And
I would take a video of him, and this is the one guy I would dox and Twitter shame, because dogs need to be free. They have a social life. Like I saw, there's some community that has a dog water park. They let the dogs go down on slides, and they're all playing. And this is the future, because as you'll see from our guest, Candace Bushnell, that like men and women aren't really getting along, and that's not happening. But dogs are happening.
Right. Can you have a Me Too moment with your dog? No, right?
No, but my dog has had inappropriate Me Too moments with your dogs, and I don't know who's going to sue who, but it's a problem.
But it is funny being in D.C. with these incredible,
litigious, worst case.
And I know the policy of this park, and your dog.
Yeah, well, that was it. We have like two hysterical. So they came to one of our meetings and said, and we're lawyers. like everybody's a lawyer in that town.
Yeah, like who
Or a
isn't? Join the
judge.
club, dude.
Yeah, and it's like two vicious lawyers that have led this whole thing.
And they've shut it down. And
No.
they don't own dogs.
They don't own dogs. But more and more dog owners are in the town. We're going to organize, and they've radicalized Izzy. You don't want to do that.
She got a little shirt and little.
No. She's like there's a chapter of Chevy Chase dog park Antifa. I'm serious, and Izzy's leading it. I told her not to.
They're going to come in and start kicking around the non-dog owners.
They're going to kick
or the
around,
cat owners.
They're going to make it's the cat owners.
That's the cat owners.
It's the cat people, the cat person.
All right. Well, when we were in Hollywood, we recorded a great episode with one of our most beloved femsplainers, The Atlantic, Caitlin Flanagan. We hung out with Bridget Fedesi
With the beautiful,
at our hotel.
devastatingly lovely
And
Bridget.
she's coming to DC, so she's going to be on the show when she comes to DC. We're going to be in Nashville. The Femsplainers is going to be doing
Politicon. Like probably with like people that are trying to be president of the United States. We're going to be there, right?
And we're going to have as our special guest E. Jean Carroll, the famous Elle magazine advice columnist, who is the one who claims she was raped by Donald Trump in Bergdorf Goodman in the lingerie dressing room. So she's written a book called Why Do We Need Men? And I think Christina and I are very on the we do need men's side. So this will be an interesting.
Because we love them.
Interesting. Well, not all men, It's
No.
like women. There are jerks. There are,
Yeah.
But
There's toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, and
But as your point on Bill
toxic
Maher was,
canininity.
like, Me Too isn't going anywhere without the cooperation of men, like good men.
no, it's something I've always said. This is something men and women do together, and I found like a nice.
Not the only thing men and women do together.
Yeah, I get it.
We need to play like some 1970s Lionel Richie, my lady. Let's get along.
So tell us about the sublime and beautiful Candace Bushnell. And I can understand how. I mean, she's a babe, no
Right.
matter what her age, and what is her age?
She's actually in the book she's 60. She may be 61, but she's 60.
Okay.
She's hit the sixth floor, as we say.
Yeah. So she's
But she's obviously the New York Times bestselling author. She's written 9 books, and the most recent is There Still Sex in the City, which is in development for a series with Paramount. So there may be a 50-something Sex in the City, because it is the book follows this cohort of female friends as they navigate midlife dating and relationships. So
it's like the Golden Girls.
no. It's for
2000 and
I would say it's the Sex in the City for 50-something.
I don't know if
Golden
people want
Girls.
that. There's not a big market for that.
Well, we'll ask her about that. But anyway, so let's bring on Candace, and then we'll have time for, short follow-up after we interview her.
Wonderful.
Let's pause right there just for a second for this wonderful message from our sponsors. Christina, I am so thrilled that BrewMate is a sponsor, because among everything else, this is a product we are using every week on our podcast, and I used it all through our summer break. It's these insulated wine holders, flasks, cups that are incredibly stylish, and they're light.
And they're light.
And they go everywhere
It's
with
not
you.
like a heavy bottle of wine.
No.
I love how many designs and styles it has to choose from. I mean, they're truly, they have something for everyone. And I have to say, I like the Femsplainer pink.
Yes,
And
we chose the Femsplainer pink for our studio. But this summer, I had to go to somebody's birthday party, and they're friends, but I don't know them that well. And I thought, I know what to get them. I know he likes wine. So I got them one of these great gift sets, which you get one of their brewmate bottles, and because it was a guy, I got this beautiful black matte one, and it came with 2 brewmate cups, which are insulated, have lids, hold each a half a bottle of wine, so you know you're going to have a good time. And it was really just the perfect gift.
Well, it's also shatterproof, and that comes in handy. Because I've, for example, for this podcast, I have tried to bring wine in my bag to this studio.
It's hazardous.
And the cork came out.
And we have to try, if we don't drink it, which we try not to do, then we have to try cork it up again.
Cork
and that
it up
never
again.
works.
No, the whole thing is a disaster. Anyway.
Well, don't settle for warm alcohol. Chill out with your favorite drinks all day long with Brewmate.
And visit brewmate.com and add code FEMSPLAIN to get a 15% off your first order.
That's 15% off your first order when you go to Brewmate, BRUMATE.com, and add code FEMSPLAIN. Cheers. Christina, one of the things you and I love is when we finish recording the podcast, it's usually like after 6 and we go home and we don't have to cook. We just call DoorDash and we can have whatever we like, the best of the city, brought to our doorsteps for food.
I mean, it's fantastic because DoorDash connects you to your favorite restaurants in the city, and ordering isn't easy. You just open the DoorDash app, choose what you want to eat, and your food is delivered to you wherever you are. And it's not just, you could go to your favorite pizza joint. There are over, I don't know, like 350,000 restaurants in 3,000 plus cities. So you might find a new favorite too.
And it was especially good to you this summer, Christina, where you were home alone all summer and a bit of a shut-in. I mean, maybe the problem with DoorDash is it just makes it so easy to get great food that you never have to go out.
It makes it easy to be who you are, home alone with your little dog. And I ordered little dishes for Izzy too.
Well, right now, our listeners can get $5 off their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter promo code FEMSPLAIN. That's $5 off your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the promo code
FEMSPLAIN.
So go stop cooking, go have a great meal in your own home. Welcome, Candace, to the Femsplainers.
I'm so happy to be here. And I'm just so happy to be on a podcast called The Femsplainers. I want to use that word all the time.
Well, and
get out of the way, I'm a Femsplainer.
That's right. That's right.
I have a T-shirt that you made with says Femsplainers.
And it said we should all be Femsplainers, right. And it's a ripoff from the Dior $900 T-shirt that says we should all be feminists. But yes, well, no, we're just so excited to have you here. I told my daughters you were coming on. We told Doris at reception that you were coming on, and everybody's just
because
so
you're
pumped.
popular with millennials. They watch the show now. There's a whole new generation.
It's so interesting. And one of the things that's so interesting about this book is I have a lot of millennials coming and reading the book and loving it. I think partly because it's not their lives, but they can kind of see like what happens. The other thing is it's their mothers' lives.
Yeah.
Like with Sex and the City, that was a real mother-daughter bonding thing. And so I feel like there's still Sex in the City. I've got a lot of, 20 and 30-somethings. They read it, they love it. And they're like, my mother's going through exactly everything in this book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, give your mother the book.
And give her a break.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I thought you were going to say like some of the millennials and younger reading are going like, oh my God, this is like Ghost of Christmas Future, because I was reading it and it was just suddenly so scary and terrifying to think about all this
Dating in your
50s and
yes, I mean there's a lot of I think that it is scary. It's definitely scary. And it was scary for me, but it's like I did it and I got through it. And I really did come out on the other side.
Well, tell us about you were married and then...
Yes, well, so is there still Sex in the City? It really is about my journey through the 50s. And it was, I mean, for me, it was a time of a shakeup. And I mean, if I look back on it, maybe I did things that I wouldn't have done. But when I got divorced, I was all of a sudden just like so burned out on my life that I literally had to leave it. And I went up to Connecticut. I probably shouldn't have done something that dramatic.
How old were you when, like...
I was like 50. It was kind of like 51 to 53.
Yeah. And you'd been married for how long?
And I'd been married for 10 years.
And he was a dancer, right?
He was a dancer. But things maybe started to go a little bit wrong. Or for me, I was starting to feel really burned out when I was like 51. And I was just really feeling like I had to leave the city and I had to do something different. I took up horseback riding again, which is something I did when I was a kid. And I felt like I was going through really something quite psychological. And it really felt like a different passage, which makes sense if you think that, you know, this is a time in our 50s when there is a lessening of hormones for men and women. And that is going to really affect your brain and how you think. And to me, one of the things that's interesting about it is for women, you're really going from having a reproductive brain to a non-reproductive brain. So we have a non-reproductive brain until we go through puberty. And we go through puberty and we have all those hormones, and that prepares our brain, I would say, in a sense, for child rearing and taking care of others. Mm-hmm. What happens in menopause, it's the opposite. And if I think it's a gift.
Stop wanting to take care of people.
It's true. I mean, that's
find your own damn keys.
Yes, but it's true. It's like that was one of the things that, you know, a lot. You know, your brain is really changing from being, you know, you're concerned about others. Others are, you know, for a lot of women, they put others first. Mm-hmm. Children, relationships. You know, if they have put the career first, well, they're doing it really for somebody else. And so it's really, you do lose some of that. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like a renaissance in your brain where you need to put yourself first and you need to connect with yourself as a person as opposed to a gender.
Well, I just want to understand one thing. So you're living in New York first, this exciting life, you know, in the 70s and 80s. Then you're married. You're living in the city. Your marriage falls apart, and then you leave the city, and you go to be like a country girl in a small town in
Connecticut.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the one hand,
you grew up, right?
It is. Yeah.
So part of me thinks that you could be very happy there because when nature makes people happy. I mean, it's like essential to human well-being. So you do get a lot of sustenance and just nourishment from beauty and being in the. But it's such a radical break, and you weren't commuting back and forth. You were just
no. I mean, and it was really all about nature because my house is located on 3 acres and there wasn't a lot, but I had such this.
And you were all by yourself?
Strong desire, you know, for nature. And I was by myself, and I was actually really happy. Mm-hmm. And I was really, really creative. I mean, really creative. I learned how to do garage band. I started writing songs, making little videos. I made a music video okay, it wasn't very good, but how many people can make a whole music video in their apartment and write the song and star in it? Not that many.
You mean who are over 20?
Exactly.
Yeah, I was just saying, my 8th grade niece does it. But
But it was really a time of, I guess, like just reconnecting with myself. And I really was curious about this because I did make such a radical break. And it wasn't something that I would have thought that I ever would have done.
And they always tell you, don't do that. If there's something dramatic change in your life, don't change your circumstances. Don't, if you lose your husband, don't sell the house and move to Spain. But you did it.
I
You sold
did
your
it.
house and moved to rural Connecticut.
It was rural Connecticut.
Well, you talked
but
about
then I
this in
came
the book,
back.
of a madness that you have. What do you
Well,
call it?
I
Middle-aged
prefer
madness?
that I don't want to use the word. I'm not going to say menopause. Like your life is over. I like madness. Do you call it?
Well, I called it middle-aged
Middle-aged.
madness. But, the thing about menopause to me is, first of all, women are going through menopause from what is the average age is
51.
51, but it can be 42 to
It can be, yeah.
whatever. So the reality is that the women I'm writing about in their 50s, chances are they've gone through menopause. We're actually post-menopausal,
Right.
which is, I mean, it's incredible to me that we, first of all, why do we have so many freaking terms? Number one. But the words like postmenopausal is also things that nobody wants to say
Wants to hear
either
or say. Yeah.
because
We need new
and I
words.
call them PMs, prime ministers of our own lives.
Well, you go back to this sort of the 50s as the transition or the passage that you were saying, because I think that's really true. And I remember being in my 40s and reading about going into your 50s, and there was a lot of talk about, it's actually great. You're suddenly confident with who you are, blah, blah, blah. You do these new things like horseback riding or whatever. But it's also, I'm feeling midway through my 50s that it's also a very transitory way to old age, that this is the first time you're really having to cope with the fact that
You're not going to live forever.
you're not going to live forever
And be
you're
young
getting wrinkles
forever.
on your face, and and suddenly you look at pictures from just 5 years ago. I hate Facebook memories. Oh my God, they should stop that. It's like, here you are 8 years ago, and you go, thanks a lot, Facebook. So when you talk about knowing yourself, have you found that, because you've now transitioned, as it were, all the way to 60? How has that passage felt to you? And now that you're
Well,
hit the
when I was in my mid-50s, it was really a time of transition for me. And it depends on what your circumstances are. If you stay married, you're on one road. And, you're not going to hit all of these bumps, or they're not going to have the impact that they will have on you if you end up getting divorced. Mm-hmm. And, for a lot of women, the 50s it's like your last chance to, it's like, sort of, you're going to go forward or you're going to give up in your 50s. And if if you get divorced, which a lot of women do because they feel that it's their last chance to find somebody else, then, your life can be very uneven.
Well, you have this, this is sort of the Ghost of Christmas Future part that I found here. You have this funny scene with one of your female character friends. She said for her, or you're writing for her, that her post-divorce life was not one of these like made-for-TV movies of fun self-discovery. It was, as she described it, and she's newly divorced, she summed up her assets. Her face still looked good, her legs still look good, but her breasts, they look bad. 2 flesh sacks in the shape of torpedoes. And that's one of the things, like, right? Like, how do you even
How do you date
naked in front
with
of
younger men? I mean, when you're young, you don't care. You're cute, everybody. But then when you're in your 50s, and to
that
be with a
tattoo
young,
ain't looking so good anymore.
to be with a younger man, I would hesitate to.
Well, that's two things, right? Some of these older women you described were cubbing. And then as
Yes.
you describe that, and
Rather than
just-
cougaring, we say cubbing.
and then just the taking off your clothes at this age.
Exactly. I mean, it's daunting. It's definitely daunting. But a lot of people still do it. They're
And a
still
lot
doing
of
it.
young men are interested in older women.
Yeah,
They
tell
are.
us. Tell us about that.
They
But
are.
that was like if there was one truly, really fictional part. I couldn't imagine that these. You went out on a Tinder date with one. He was what, 25 or something, or 28?
Well, he was 33.
Oh, okay. I thought he was younger.
At first, I moved to, in the book, I call it The Village, and I was in my mid-50s. I was actually maybe 56 or 57 at that point. And I had a lot of friends who suddenly got divorced, which was really the inspiration for this book because everybody seemed to be going through the same thing in this passage. And I kept seeing these patterns and stories repeat themselves and kept hearing the same stories. And one thing that happened was that all of my friends, and including myself, we were getting hit on by younger guys. And I mean younger guys. So actually, all of those cubbing stories are true. All of them. And there are many, many more. Now, I actually heard, I could have put in 20 or 30 stories. I'm telling you, I heard so many stories. But what happens in the books, I can't have 20 characters. So, it gets whittled down so that the female characters end up being really end up being composites of composites. But that, I heard so many stories and experienced them myself with being hit on by, I got it. 10 guys. 20 guys. It happened to me.
And Danielle, don't look so happy.
No, I'm looking
It
at you. It
happened to me
happens
a
to Christina. It
couple of
never
days
happens
ago.
to me.
It happened to me. I went to the local bookstore in my town, and there was a really cute guy, and he was like, he just practically asked for my phone number. I ran out because I was like, I got a boyfriend. I can't do this.
Well, you're very darling. I can see that happening, and it does happen to me occasionally. But my impulse is to want to mother them and give them advice.
Yes.
And
Well,
Is
that's
that what they're looking for? Because there's something also. There's something. Am I wrong to find a little bit creepy that these younger guys are kind of?
a lot. That's the other side of this equation is that these are not women who they are not saying, "Oh, I'm looking for a younger guy," and there were like half of the women don't even find the idea of being with a guy like that age, that much younger. They don't find that attractive. They are not looking for that.
You suggested
but these
they
guys
were
are
moving into their houses, like it was a kind of also that convenient.
Oh yes,
Moving out of their parents', basements.
absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. These, they are often in transition, and they will move in there. I've heard a story of a woman who she started seeing this younger guy, and it's 8 years later, and I think he's maybe 32. He doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
I wonder if now, with women
And-
having more power and
Right.
resources, we will begin to see
Sugar mommies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see it. Absolutely. But we live in a culture where it's very acceptable for women to be very transactional in their relationships. I mean, let's face it.
Absolutely.
Women who marry a really rich guy, come on. And that's one of the ways that we tell women that you can get by in the world economically is marry a rich guy. And
Well, because women are sex objects. We all know that. But men are success objects. And women pursue them for not merely true love, but sometimes for other, just being protected and taken care of. But that could change. I mean, I years ago, and I would write about this, I was skeptical that it would change because I just thought it was so written
Wired in.
Yeah, that and we read, you look at the primates, our closest relatives. And I remember once on the cover of the New York Times Magazine, there were some very angry, older feminists who, kind of let their hair go gray and all, but they were furious that men weren't coming after them in their 60s. But that was many years ago. But now I'm thinking, first of all, women may be, attracting young men, but because these roles are reversing,
And they need a
well,
place.
the other
they need to get out of the basement.
Let's be frank. I mean, there are a lot of women in their 50s who look better than women in their 20s.
I think I look better
I
in my
look better.
50s than I did in my
So I had that. I was with
I had a
Kendall
really
Polly.
bad haircut.
I had terrible bangs.
We were all trying to look like Linda Evangelista, and none of us should have had bangs.
None of us should have had. What was with the
Only
bangs?
she could wear that haircut.
But to your point, I think it's a very interesting question right now of how our gender roles are going to evolve, because I'm a big believer that technology, it doesn't go backwards. It's only going forwards. And one of the areas where it's really going forwards is in reproduction. And, how we reproduce, what's what do appropriate parents look like? And, I think in the future,
You're going to say none of us will need anyone? Is that so?
But our robot. We'll have our robot.
well, I don't know if we'll have robots, but I do think that people are, our lives will not be all about reproduction.
Well, there's less and less of that
And,
now.
However, now I'm wondering though, because my abiding regret is I have two sons, my stepson and one son.
They're your abiding regret.
No, my abiding regret, is not having. Now that I'm older, I wish I'd had 5, and I envy my friends that have a lot of kids because it just seems you have more fun as an older person when you've got all these young people around, and then you're very intrigued by their lives, and it connects you to the. So I regret not having more children.
Well, you wrote about not having kids. You did not have children, correct?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. And you wrote, I realized one of the realities of not having kids, no one needs you. Sure, your dog and your friends need you, but it's not quite the same. Do you still, do you feel that? Like, do you have those regrets?
I don't have regrets.
Period. No.
I do not have any regrets. The reality, but on the other hand, I'm not afraid to call a spade a spade. So, the reality is that if you don't have kids, when you're not going to have that familial connection. For instance, when your parents die. Mm-hmm. So when both my parents passed away, that was when I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So technically.
Are you an only child?
No, I have 2 sisters.
Okay.
But, technically you are alone in that sense. Now, do you feel, whether or not you feel emotionally alone is a completely different story, because there are many, many people who, at the opposite of what you're saying, have children, regret having children, do not have good relationships with their children, do not see their children are not nearby, And it's only until maybe they're dying when the kids are coming around. So, the problem with all of these ideas of like, oh, if you have children, you won't be alone when you get older, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, if you have to have daughters, but if you just have sons, which I have, I don't know.
You don't know. I mean, you don't know what they say about you behind your back. They might be like, my mother's a pain in the ass. I don't want to see her.
All right, David.
I've heard
Tamler,
a lot of kids
say that
about their parents.
Really?
And about their mothers.
That's harsh.
Well,
It's real.
As you point out, I mean, this is also the age where you're seeing all the cards falling where they may, and that some people come through it okay, and as you pointed out, that the women, and this is a great fear in our time and for younger women, worried about taking time out from the workforce to have kids. You would describe these women who had been very affluent and living in nice houses suddenly winding up in your village, as it were, which is, I believe, based in the Hamptons. And nothing, like they've lost everything, and at least you had your career, your savings, your own house. You weren't dependent.
And you have
in that
two
way.
sisters. Do you have nieces and nephews?
I have 3 nephews.
Ah.
I don't ever see them.
Oh.
It's not a problem. Really? My goodness, you're so emotional. What was I going to say?
Oh, about making the choices that you at least have all your savings and your life.
The women who I worry about the most are the women who got married and had children, had a career, backed off from the career so that it's not a viable income to support themselves or a family. And, so they have a little income on the side. And they get divorced, and there are a variety of reasons to get divorced. And one of the big reasons that women get divorced in this age is that their partners, their men, simply run out of steam. They lose their jobs. They become ineffective. They completely lose interest. And the women in those situations feel like they are dying inside. And if they don't do something, they are just going to shrivel up and die. And then when they get divorced, there's no money. There are no assets. And so there you are in the world in your mid-50s, good chance you got some kids. Mm-hmm. And you are going to have to radically downsize. And, it's very easy for people to say, well, if you can't afford to live in a place, don't live there. But that's very difficult for anybody if you've been living in a community for a very, very long time. And then all of a sudden you can't afford to live in that community. Now in your mid-50s, you're supposed to move. You're supposed to downsize, maybe move to another town where you know nobody. Mm-hmm. And
you fall out, especially in your New York world, you fall out of these social circles that couples stop associating.
And if you get divorced, you will fall out of your social circles.
Yeah.
Because people married people, they don't want divorced women around. They want other couples around.
It's also a bit of a threat, right? To have
it can
a
be.
single woman like a shark in your waters.
It can be,
especially if you're in a very successful.
I don't know. Aren't people changing a little bit? I recognize that, but it just seems so last century. Like, so many people are single now. I think more people are single than are married.
I think that's true.
That is no longer the norm. And aren't I single? I'm single.
Yeah, but yeah.
So you still hang out with me?
Yeah, but that's because you're a shut-in, and if I didn't,
I know. I'd prefer to be home alone with my dog.
Well, there you go. So it's perfect.
Yeah,
but,
you really like being on your own.
Look, let's face it, being single is not a strange thing at all. And, one of the reasons to write this book is because there are so many single women in their 50s. Mm-hmm. And it is a different landscape. And, for women who are my age, I mean, we still grew up with this idea that of not really thinking about what your life will look like in your 50s and then just sort of assuming that you would be with someone by the time that you're in your 50s.
Did your parents remain married throughout?
They did.
Yeah, mine too.
Are they happy?
I think that they were very happy.
Was your father an inventor or something?
Yes, he has the patent on the fuel cell they used in the first Apollo space rocket.
Wow, I read about that. Aha. So you have an engineering brain somewhere in there that you have the creative capacity and then analytic capacity.
Right. Well, you did this sort of
Yes.
taxonomy, which I wanted to get to, of men you meet in your 50s, which I thought was really funny. And ways to meet them. So you had there's this whole new wave of what you call the bicycle boys. And I think anyone who's been out cycling or driving on a
I like
Sunday
those boys,
afternoon,
so be careful.
they're all in there what
They'll help you. They'll stop you. I had so many.
They're all in their Grand Tour, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Crazy bicycle wearers if they're branded athletes. They're going 9,000 miles an hour. And they go too
incredibly
fast.
fast.
Ripped bodies. You can see that as they go by. And this is you think this is sort of middle age.
So you joined that group to meet nice guys?
Well, that was one of the experiments.
Not quite.
No. I honestly just went out bicycle riding. I had written one of the stories in Sex and the City was about the bicycle boys, and so they really kind of wanted an update on that, which is interesting because so many more people are biking now. And so I went through some of the different types of they're not obviously boys, but these different types of men who get on their bicycles. And it's something that women do too. It's, they're women, I call them the helmet heads.
Yeah.
They do anything that requires a helmet.
Well, you had the tech billionaire. It does have to be a billionaire. The affluent man in his 50s. And he goes he just rides to Montauk there and back in a day just to tell his bros that that's what he did. It's this sort of insane discipline, compulsion, whatever.
Yes, the discipline and the competitiveness.
Right, and as you pointed out, you can't meet them because they're going too fast.
Exactly.
How do you hang out with that guy?
No, you have to go to the bike shop.
Yeah.
Okay, then you went on Tinder, and one of the things I loved was you were talking to a bunch of course, New York teenage girls, 17, 18, who are also all on Tinder, which as a mother of a 17-year-old, I went, my daughter better not have a Tinder account. But they were talking about sort of the horror of this way of meeting people. And then you reminisced about dating 30 years ago, and there was something to be said for that.
Yes, well, it's interesting because when I look back on it, dating when I was in my 20s and 30s and writing Sex and the City, one of the things, we did not have a problem finding guys. We didn't. No. There was no problem meeting guys or finding guys. The problem seemed to be making a commitment. In the 80s, there was that commitment crisis.
Peter Pan syndrome. That was the first.
The Peter Pan syndrome and all of that. And then those women became the Sex and the City woman who was in her 30s, single, successful, or, could take care of herself. And so that question was, again, why are there so many great women and no great guys to marry them? And what's so shocking when I look back on it is in the mid-90s, a lot of men really felt that a woman over the age of 35 was over the hill. Mm-hmm. And, gosh, it'd be almost impossible for her to get pregnant. And things have changed so much since then that it's really kind of extraordinary.
What do you think, if you imagine Sarah Jessica Parker character, what was her name again? Carrie.
Or Samantha the cougar.
Samantha. or well, we won't even talk about what was the one that married the Orthodox Jew?
Charlotte.
Charlotte. In the Me Too era. Would they have what would be going on? Would they be filing charges or?
Okay. First of all,
be reconsidering her entire sex
I have to
life.
ask you a question. Like, what exactly to you is the Me Too era? Because Me Too has been going on forever.
Oh, you mean the behavior of men?
Yes.
I think if I could sum it up, it's an interesting thing to watch, and you may disagree with this, that younger women, the sort of antagonism and mistrust that is between the sexes in general, and that somebody like Samantha or Carrie and that kind of sexual adventurism would now be very much, oh, don't do that, or even if Samantha were to look back on some of her less, I wish I hadn't slept with that guy. Now it's like going to be a big
I can't ever go there and do that kind of hypothetical because there's no point to it. The characters are so much of their time. And there's so much really of this time of the aughts, of the 2000s, where, if you remember, that was shamefully a very unfeminist time. There was a lot of money around. They had just really loosened the controls on debt and borrowing. So people were really, it was such a consumer time, and people were, buying. Women, there was bridezillas. Women wanted to get married. And they wanted men to pay for things. And a lot of actresses said that they weren't feminists. And nobody felt that they needed feminism. And so the show, it really, that's the time that it was popular. And so I think if you want to talk to me, Candace Bushnell, I'm happy to give you my opinions, but I'm not going to give you the opinions of imaginary characters.
Your opinions, because if you were doing this again, that whole idea of that sexually empowered woman who is like every bit like some swashbuckling man, it'd be different. I think.
Samantha.
I think so. Samantha is a TV creation,
right?
And a lot.
Although I knew a Samantha. I'm just saying.
a lot of people. A lot of people were.
You were Samantha.
I was Samantha.
Let me ask you: do you know that character Samantha in real life? As to me, the women I know in real life who are, quote, like Samantha, and I'm going to say they're like Samantha in the sense that they have a lot of sex. Those women are not actually sexually free. They usually don't have boundaries, and they usually have some kind of borderline personality, or, there's usually something else going on. I'm not saying that person does not exist, but I am saying that
that
she
was
is
a
a creation of she's a TV creation.
But your views, because I know we're getting short on time, but your views, just looking between these two generations, like talking to your 17-year-old Tinder users and seeing the change that's happened, Me Too or Me Too aside, what are your thoughts? Like, what would you tell these young women about being sexually empowered or not? What would you say to them?
Well, I think part of being sexually empowered is having the kind of sex that you want to have, which means that I think my sense is that there's quite a lot of a certain kind of sex out there, porn, which is the hookup, and not a lot out there about, where the woman, it's really about the woman's pleasure. So I don't know what's going on in people's bedrooms. So it's hard to make sort of sweeping generalizations. But my sense of what is out there in the culture compared to when I was 19, 20, and in my 20s, what was in the culture was Cosmopolitan magazine, Helen Gurley Brown, women's magazines, which were really pushing the feminist message of being an independent woman who could have it all. And the message that men were getting was it was all about pleasing women. And it was about giving women an orgasm. There was a lot of oral sex, men giving women oral sex. And, in my own personal experience, sex was something that, people wanted to have feelings. They wanted to at least like each other. They wanted to have a conversation. The guys prided themselves on taking the time to make sure that, the woman was, quote, satisfied. And that was something that was in the culture. That was the message that was out there about sex. Now, the messages about sex are very different. And, I only know the young women who I talk to. And obviously, I'm not going to be talking, I don't have women coming up to me who are like, oh, I'm having such a great time. I'm having exactly the kind of sex that I want. Those are not, they are not going to come up to me and talk to me. So the women who are coming up to me are, they have a lot of complaints. And I hear the same complaints over and over again. Sex is very unsatisfactory. They feel pressure to do certain sexual acts and positions that they are not interested in doing, that they find painful, uncomfortable, and demeaning.
Yeah.
But this is what is expected of them from the men they encounter. So that's something that I hear again and again. Does it mean that everybody's doing this? Probably not. But when I talk to young women, that's, the story that I hear. And that's,
so interesting. That's
so,
really interesting.
I don't know. I don't know. That's what I hear. And there's a lot of stuff that says, porn doesn't affect sex in any way. I don't agree. I'm not a scientist, but common sense tells me that that is not true. And, that's it. That's what I hear.
Well, it's just the last very quick thing before you go, because I know you have to go. But at the end of your book, your Candace character / you meets a nice guy finally, and he's a nice guy. And is that still happening? Was that true? Or are you?
Yes. And of course, one of the questions people always ask me is, God, when you're writing a book like this, when you're writing Sex in the City, that must just really kill your dating life. Excuse me. And, because nobody wants to be written about. Well, the opposite's actually true. First of all, people come up to me all the time and tell me that I should write their story. So that happens about 98% of the time. And then the other thing is, when I was writing Sex in the City, I met my Mr. Big.
Yeah.
And, so when I was writing this book, I also met somebody. It could possibly be that, when I'm writing a book like this, I'm out there trying to do research.
Or you're attractively preoccupied.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps I was attractively preoccupied, but I don't know what that is.
The hard to get sort of thing. I'm not interested right now, and that's cat.
Yeah, I don't play those games.
Well, no, that's the benefit of actually being true. You were
right.
All right. Well, Candace, thank you so much for coming by. The book is There Still Sex in the City? And it seems there is, which is a good thing for all of us to hear.
And we didn't even talk about her dogs.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
They are
next
so
time.
sweet.
You big poodles, enormous standard
Beautiful
poodles.
dogs.
Gorgeous dog.
Thank you.
That was amazing to have Candace in the studio. She does look great. You look at her and you want to go, okay, what are you doing? But there's nothing artificial about her.
Nothing artificial. And I can sort of understand why she has cubs, as she calls them, like 27-year-old boys, lusting after her. She's gorgeous.
I always feel like if David, my husband, were to like leave me for the intern or whatever he's going to do, or be reading a book while crossing an intersection and get hit by a bus, I always have this horrible feeling I'm going to have to go find like an 80-year-old, because then you look like a hot babe.
Right. No, you've got like they're 27-year-olds longing for you. Apparently.
Christina, you're out a little on the single scene.
No, I'm not.
You're not
I am looking for a very cute young cub Maltipoo to be a friend of Izzy. Oh God, I'm such a cliched like woman of a certain age. I'm very involved with my dog. But it's very satisfying. It's true love.
Well, it's also, I have to say, I mean, maybe this is also, I assume these women that she talked about have children, but, my son is 24, my eldest daughter is 28. Like, I can't imagine wanting to, I love hanging out with my kids. I love hanging out with younger people because you learn a lot. They're interesting. Yeah. They're fun.
Yeah.
But this idea of making a boyfriend of a 33-year-old or something.
No, when I meet them and they're very cute, I love them because they remind me of my sons, and I want to be their mother and advise them. But
it'd be so creepy.
Physically would be creepy. Well, mainly, I can see that they're lovely, but when you're a certain age, you want somebody your own age who has a lived-in body like you do.
aside from all that horror that we discussed of actually undressing. Oh my God.
Yeah. No, you want somebody like close to your age.
Well, David's mother, his late mother, who was always wise on so many things, said, in the end, every man marries his nurse.
Oh.
And I think that's so you young women courting an older man, just keep that in mind. There are unfailingly trade-offs. But yeah, no, she was interesting. And okay, the last thing she said, and if we'd had more time, we were talking about millennials and the young having these complaints about things that they are being asked to do. I think I've told this story on the podcast, so just indulge me again. But it's not just young people. And she said the influence of porn and these expectations of certain acts. I know someone who is like, in her 50s, like a Candace Bushnell person who got divorced, went out on a date with like a nice age-appropriate dentist, and they had a lovely dinner. It was very old-fashioned. Whether he came back to her house or she went back to his, and then he like ripped off his pants and pushed her head down because this is what he'd seen in pornography, and this is what he thought, people do. And
I'm afraid.
She was horrified.
Having listened to her, I suddenly had this revelation of what was the real deal breaker for the sexual revolution. Like, women were like at Woodstock taking off our clothes, sex, not me, but they were there, and loving sex. I think the real deal breaker, because of porn, can I say it on?
Yeah.
Anal sex.
You think that's the complaints?
Well, I think that is something that, there may be like 1 in 100 girls that's really into it. Don't ask for that on a date. Don't. And
even never.
Never, unless she, you know what?
Yeah,
let her ask for it, because there are girls that are into it.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's the effect of, I think.
And I think it's pornography. And I think that.
And sort of the acceptance of gay sex, like it's kind
gay
of
porn which is kind of chic and hip and just better production values. But I think it influenced heterosexual porn. And if you're gay, that's like the thing. But for heterosexuals, there are other things that women have expected. And now if this is a demand, and it's possible that a lot of young men just think, oh, well, maybe that's the cool thing.
That's what they...
Men don't ask for it unless she does. If she's like this 1 in 100, maybe?
I don't
We don't know.
We don't know. Other than, but I was also struck, and this is really, really true, about that mutuality. And I, more than you, look at the sexual revolution as, having many great empowering things. But as she said, glamorized a lot of it, like in the Samantha person, and, removed emotion, removed commitment, removed in many ways romanticism that it became a little bit of a raw deal for women in many ways. But she was right. Like in those initial stages, I guess it came out of the joy of sex.
Yeah.
We've talked about that very hairy 70s manual.
No, I resonated that men.
But it was like all these things you could do for each other.
Yes. And not learned from porn, but just sort of intuitive and tender and...
Yeah, but men wanting to please women too.
Well, I think because of the porn, they have the misguided idea, oh, this is what'll please women. That I take her, force her down or come from behind. Most women want tenderness and affection and...
Well, Samantha on Sex and the City, for all her empowerment, does have, it's vulgar, I'm sorry, but a very hilarious, memorable line. She goes, there's a reason they call it a blow job.
Some women like that job, but
there will be women who will fill that job.
No, that is different from.
But then there has to be mutuality, right? And I think that was the message of and the Erica Jong era of feminism. And Erica Jong was on last season, just saying, that it was a recognition that women had desires and pleasures too. And if what she's saying and these women coming to her are all about, I don't like being asked to do this, it's degrading, it's transactional, it's awful, then that's really fascinating.
Yeah, and so don't take your lessons about intimacy and sexuality from porn. Or dog parks. Except the Chevy Chase dog park, where none of this ever happens.
Brett Kavanaugh's dog is at Chevy Chase dog.
He's kind of hot.
The dog?
Yeah. Izzy kind of likes it. But we're not talking about that.
Okay, but Izzy probably gave her consent.
No, Izzy's gender fluid. She's the problem. She's a problem. She's pansexual. There have been complaints about her from a Dalmatian in our dog park. You've seen her. She has sexually assaulted your dogs.
That would require a stepladder? I don't know how that works.
No, because it was lying on its back.
Oh, okay.
Okay, never mind.
You know what?
Moving on.
I don't want to imagine this.
We've inflicted on our viewers
so
what
many bad
hardcore
images.
porn inflicts on tender women that don't want that on a date.
Yeah, gentlemen, don't act like you're in a dog park, right?
Right.
Basic rule of life.
All right. Be tender and ask her what she likes.
All right, Ella, do we have any, I think we had a little bit of fun reaction from Christina's appearance on Bill Maher.
Oh, where somebody called me a slut?
Oh, we're not reading that one, but somebody did call you a slut, and you were kind of like, ooh.
I can be
slut shamed.
At my age, slut shaming, it's kind of cool.
Go on.
What do you mean?
Tell me. All right, Ella. Well, take it from here.
Yeah, we do have some listener feedback from Evan, who says, hello, Christina. I haven't checked out your podcast yet, but will after seeing you on Bill Maher this week, my favorite weekly show. Your message and story spoke to me during a week where I had an unusual encounter which I desperately want to share. I work at a restaurant in Minneapolis. This week, a woman and her husband asked to speak to a manager. That fell on me. It's never a good sign when someone wants to speak to the manager, and I could tell this woman was upset based upon her facial expression. I greeted her, hello, is there something I can help you with? Yes, she said in a concerned voice. I want you to know what had just happened to me. I'm here with my husband and I ordered a beer. Your bartender brought it out and set it in front of my husband, inferring that he, the man, ordered the beer and me, the woman, did not, because women don't like beer, like men like beer.
Oh, who the hell cares? What? She's you know what she is? An injustice collector.
That's shocking. Go on, Ella.
It is shocking. Shocking and appalling.
Beer discrimination.
Yeah.
Well, she continues, I am so outraged and offended that my face is turning red. He says it was. I'm thinking in my head, come on, seriously? I tried to explain to her that the bartender just gets a ticket printed out and doesn't see who ordered what, but that even made her upset. Do you not see what the problem is with this patriarchal establishment?
Oh my God.
I finally
She went like nuclear.
You sure this wasn't in a dog park?
I finally cut the woman off to offer her a free beer in exchange for her being so offended, thinking it would quell her. That's very
It
nice.
just made her more furious.
Yes, she says, that's very nice, but it's not the point. You can't run a business with men desecrating female customers like this. Desecrating.
Whoa.
Fast forward to, oh, sorry.
No, let her
Finish.
Yeah.
But I have a statement.
Fast forward 2 minutes later. She accepts the free beer after I promised to train the bartender better. I said nothing to him. Sorry, I'm just a thin-skinned feminist, she concluded. I thought in my head, that's not feminism. That's a shred of combative insanity. I then asked my coworker, who's female, gay, with tattoos, and a vocally proclaimed feminist, if this woman had any credence to her complaint. She looked at me blankly. That actually just happened. Short answer, no. I think there are bigger battles for feminism.
What is a bigger battle than that, Christina, really?
Oh, well, like
Being wrongly served beer.
what's happening right now in Iran, where women are being arrested just because they're asking to be able to go to sports events, or women who post videos of themselves taking off their hijab.
Oh, okay. But we do have first world problems.
We have first world problems. I have the dog park problem.
Exactly. So.
But this isn't even a dog park problem. This is not a problem. And this is her creating a problem because she is a grievance collector. And she's looking to be offended. And it's kind of a measure of how far feminism has come in this society. We have so many victories. Not that we're finished. There's still some unfinished work. But overall, it's been such a success that grievance mongers like that have to look for some little tiny irrelevant slight.
Also, I think the answer, Evan is his name, right? Evan? The answer to that was, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't have gender conclusions about what people drink. And oh my God, yeah, okay. Evan, you have our sympathy. Also, just being a waiter.
And be nice to waiters.
Oh, you really are at the sort of forefront of humanity and seeing it in all its kaleidoscope behaviors.
Oh, God. Anyway.
All right. Yeah, okay. That was ridiculous.
So we also have some listener reaction from Janet. She says, hello, I saw Christina and Bill Maher, and I have to say, as a millennial woman, thank you. Thank you for articulating everything I've been thinking and feeling about this new incarnation of man-hating, man-fearing feminism. I was raised largely around adults and grew up around a lot of men, a lot like the media caricature of Joe Biden, who are caring and considerate and friendly. Never in my wildest dreams was I taught that being compassionate was creepy. I was also taught to speak up if something was wrong. This notion that a man has too much power for me to be able to say something is upsetting as well as just plain wrong. Never have I thought of women as so weak that we have to complain and fear every arm graze. Thank you for the work that you do.
Well, thank you. And in a way, I think that's kind of like Candace Bushnell feminism, is that women I think it was kind of better in the 80s and 90s because women did feel empowered and you could tell men what you expected and to treat.
But you weren't like this idea as the first.
No, suddenly we're
person.
so afraid.
No, but also you have to escalate it. You have to go to the manager. You can't just, say, let's say you thought Joe Biden or some guy like him was being creepy. You can't just say knock it off or, hey, don't do that. Like, why do we always have to
go to the principal,
stew and go
be
to
the snitch and the scold? There are too many scolds, and women should avoid that. Right. And there are some men scolds too, and I don't like it. Just be nice to people. And if something bothers you, then tell the person directly in a polite, nice, friendly way.
We have a coffee cup that is based on a meme that's based on Christina, which just says, just deal with it. So if you want that coffee cup, but it's like your motto, right?
No. My motto is not deal with
it.
it. My motto is just to be nice about it.
Yeah, no, it's
Give people a break, and especially men. Men need a break. They're people are deliberately misinterpreting, taking everything and going nuclear.
But when a man is a jerk, call him out as a jerk. I mean, my eldest daughter has this wonderful story, and again, if I'm senile podcast listeners and I've told this story.
We're going to tell a lot of stories many times.
Yeah,
just because of the
deal
alcohol on this program. Deal with it.
She was in a bar, and some guy came up to her. And are you aware of this phenomenon, negging? I mean,
No, what is
Ella,
that?
you're not familiar with negging?
Okay,
No, is this-
nobody is. But
Okay. Well, it was a big thing. It's kind of what the what are the incel guys do? They read all these books about how to pick up women. And there was a famous book about how to pick up women.
Oh, yeah, but pickup artist.
The pickup artist. And it was one of its main messages was, especially with an attractive woman, the way you make her feel insecure is you go negative on her, basically. You walk up and you say something that plays to her insecurities, which you'd think would be like a really bad idea.
That'll never work,
It will never work, right? But anyway, apparently if you can get an insecure girl, but this is how guys are thinking, that's how I'll get that attractive chick at the bar. And some guy walked up to her and said something shitty to her. And she just looked at him. She goes, "Are you negging me? Are you really negging me? Because that's really not going to work. You just look like a jerk."
Yeah.
And that's the way to deal with it.
Directly.
Just take care of it yourself, ladies.
And then maybe he'll come back and say, "I was wrong. I'm sorry." And you could be friends.
Well, any guy who's decided negging is a good idea is probably
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of just misinformation disseminated to young men from bad websites or just, I don't know, weird sources and hardcore porn. Keep that to yourself, boys.
Yeah. Keep that very much to yourself.
Actually, it was Bill Maher that once said something very funny, which is that women should never, men and women should never exchange sex fantasies because we find theirs boring and they find ours horrifying. So don't impose them on each other.
Except when we did our episode on porn, we found that one of the leading female fantasies was rape.
I don't know.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember it. No, but there was also a lot of male fantasies about MILF.
we have to. We're as you pointed out, we're going into the GILF.
We might be GILF, but no.
But I can accept MILF.
I'll accept the
Slut shaming.
slut designation at my age. Bring it on.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Before we go, I just want to let you know that your support for this program through Patreon is super important. And you guys are not going to get to hear the discussion that we had with Candace after we finished talking to her. We do a special episode monthly for our Patreon subscribers, and they get to ask questions of our guests. And so aside from needing your support, and if you like what you're hearing and support what we do, please consider becoming a member or a subscriber at Patreon. Whatever you have. If you guys just $1 a month, that's not even a drink a month.
Yeah. Just help us feel
help
good
us.
about ourselves.
If we did that,
keep us
we
in
could go ad-free.
good wine.
Honestly, if every
And then we'll go
person
ad-free.
listening, then we could go ad-free. But we're still not meeting our costs. And God knows we have to pay for our own drinks. So
ladies shouldn't have to do that.
come on, really? Anyway, but thank you to our Patreon subscribers, and thank you to you all for listening, and welcome the new Bill Maher listeners.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Okay.
See you next week. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for listening to the Femsplainers. Keep up with us on Twitter and Facebook at Femsplainers and on Instagram at Femsplainers Podcast. Send questions and comments to contact@femsplainers.com.
A big thanks to Ella Ryder, our research and in-studio production assistant, and to Nat Frum, our audio and video editor. And we're proud to be part of the Ricochet Network and grateful to the American Enterprise Institute for allowing us to record in its studio every week in downtown Washington, D.C.
And miss something? You'll find everything you need at our homepage, femsplainers.com, including links to past episodes, our sponsors, where you can sign up to support us, and even to merch. And please don't forget to like us or give us 5 stars on iTunes.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.